Thank you very much. Please, thank you very much. As Adlai Stevens once said, flattery is fine as long as you don't inhale. I'm here with a bunch of members of our administration, Fred Hochberg and Megan Smith, who, by the way, may be the smartest person I know, Lisa Jackson, and scores of people in the administration, with a record number of LGBT appointees, ambassadors, and senior White House staff. Chad, thank you for that introduction. A number of you have said to me over the last 3 to 4 years, thank you very much. No, didn't say that. Oh, anyway, what was I saying? But I've been thanked for speaking up, apparently out of turn on Meet the Press. But you know, I want to make something clear, and I mean this sincerely. Some of you credited me with taking a political risk or thought I was doing something special, but folks, I was just answering in a straightforward, direct way what I've known my whole life, and I mean this sincerely. It's based on a proposition best expressed by my dad to me when I was 17 years old. He was driving me into the town square called Rodney Square, surrounded by corporate buildings, Hercules Corporation and the DuPont Company, dropping me off so that I could run and get an application to be a lifeguard in the city swimming pool system. And we're at a light before it changed, and I was about to get out, and I looked to my right, and there were two very well-dressed, conservative-dressed men who embraced each other and kissed and walked in different directions to their jobs, I assume. I remember turning and looking back at my dad. Never forget what my dad said to me. He said, "Joey, they're in love with each other. It's that simple." I mean that. And it's always been that simple for me and those who were raised by people like my dad. So there wasn't any chance I was taking. There wasn't anything about what I did. It's just who I think most Americans are. But the speed with which things have changed from 2012 to today for marriage equality, where all marriages are recognized in 50 states, is not because of any national figure that spoke out, not because of any of the celebrities that you'll have stand before you tonight and have stood before you for so long. It's because of all of you and thousands of faceless people like you who have had the courage to stand up and speak their hearts and minds. The American people are so much better than their leaders give them credit for. Not only did all of you, by the chances you have taken in your careers and your lives, not only did you set your love free, you've heard me say this before, you've set free millions of straight men and women. You freed them from the stigma they feared if they spoke up and defended their lesbian or gay or bisexual or transgender brother or sister, friend, college roommate. I believe from the beginning that not only did the social disapprobation of society keep so many LGBT members from coming forward, it also inhibited the tens of millions of straight people from coming forward to support. But as I said back in 2012, the vast majority of the American people agreed with me with what I said and have agreed with you for a long time before then. So you left the Supreme Court absolutely no choice whatsoever. I mean this. But to recognize the simple proposition my father taught me 50 years ago. We also know it wasn't simple for so many who went before us. Just like Chad did, I want to take a moment to recognize the people I assume are in this room and some who are no longer in this room. All of you, all of those who came before us, from Stonewall to today, Harvey Milk, Matthew Shepard gave his life. So many others, so many others. Not only did so many of you do so much more than anything those of us in public life have ever done, you did something that was not only at the moment, at the time, consequential. You showed up. You showed enormous courage. And in many cases, physical courage. Physical courage. You risked your jobs, your livelihoods, your very physical well-being. Recognize just for a moment where we are, what you did, what was done, and realize that the great arc of justice is the journey of this nation, and it continues to move in the right direction. And we're moving closer and closer to the animating spirit of America because of all of you. Not me, because of all of you. We become more of what America was meant to be. All men created equal. All have a right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We say it so often that it takes on a meaning, it loses its meaning. The very fact that we finally recognize that love is not a political matter, it's a basic human right. The fact that we recognize that is because of you. Jim and all the plaintiffs and historic lawyers and judges. Jim, I can't see you, but I know you're here, and I know John's with you tonight, like he is every day. And Tim Cook. What does Tim Cook do by being so open? What he does, he makes young kids in that classroom. Remember when you were that kid in the classroom, worrying. What am I so different? How are people going to look at me? What can I do? Can I do what everybody else can do? And you look and you see a man like Tim Cook, who's turned the world upside down, who understands that equality is not only a moral imperative, but it's the heart of our economic might and our dynamism. Given so much encouragement to so many brilliant young women and men in the LGBT community. Ellen Page, gifted actress, takes the limelight on her and shines it on something bigger than herself. And by the way, Ellen, you won that debate at the Iowa State Fair. You won that debate. There was a clear winner in Iowa. I know we've said it over and over again the last 50 years. Hope will never be silent, as Harvey said. Well, you and your predecessors have always had hope, and you've always spoken out. As I said, as you did, good and decent Americans were exposed to the reality of not only who you were, but who they were, and what their responsibility is. So once again, I want to pay tribute to the women and men who've taken great risks and had the courage to change things. You've changed the world in which my grandchildren will grow up, all for the better. No, you have. You have. We owe them, we owe you. And I know now that what I knew then, the American people are with us. By the way, after I had that little interview on Meet the Press, and some people weren't so happy, I made a point. I said, you guys are way out of step. The American people are already there. There are, by the way, so here's what I want to get to. So much, there's still those shrill voices in the national political arena trying to undo what has finally been done. But they're not going to succeed. Don't worry about it. No, really. I mean this sincerely. The American people have moved so far beyond them and their appeals to prejudice and fear and homophobia. And because of how far you've moved the American people, the remainder of the work, and much work has to be done, I promise you, will come much more quickly and more surely. It will increase in its rapidity the change that we need. I strongly support the Equality Act, and it will pass. It will pass. It may not pass this Congress. It will pass because it's simple and it's straightforward. The American people think the law already prevents an employer from firing someone because they are LGBT. The American people already think it's illegal to deny you housing. The American people already think what the act calls for. The problem is, they don't know that it's still legal in so many places. So the one way, if you could change this overnight, would be to infuse in every mind in America that there are still 31 states that can deny you employment and housing, etc. We just have to, look, I'm not your staff, but I'm kind of like your staff. Here's the deal. I've told this to Chad. A lot of you are very successful women and men. Put your money into advertising, not about other people. Let them know it's illegal in their state to deny someone a job based on race. Let them know. The American people are already with you. Look at the numbers. There's homophobes still left. Most of them are running for president, I think. So the first piece of change is information. I really mean this. People are always stunned as I go around the country and talk about how, the line, you can be married today at 9 and fired at noon. They look at, try it out. Try it, ask them. They look at you, no, that's not possible. I really mean it. Calling the people in each of these states to demand change that they think has already happened is not going to be as hard as you think. We've made great progress in any don't ask, don't tell. We made it clear in this administration that you're proud of the fact that so many members of the LGBT community are willing to risk their lives and serve their countries, and many have given their lives for their country. And in July, when I said, and I wasn't making any profound statement, I said transgender equality is a civil rights issue of our time. It took the Secretary of Defense about 10 minutes in July 2015. No longer is there any questions. Transgender people are able to serve in the United States military. As Ash Carter, as a decent man, said, being transgender shouldn't preclude a person from serving his country in the military. It's simple. All Americans who are qualified to serve physically should be able to serve. As I said last year, transgender rights are the civil rights issue. But there's so much more to do. There are 680,000 homeless young LGBT people, half of whom are homeless because they're rejected by their parents and their families. I can't think of anything that would be more sad. Well, we've also, though, decided that finally put an end to changing our immigration laws so that a same-sex partner of a U.S. citizen now has an expedited path to citizenship. There are nearly 1 million LGBT adult immigrants living in the shadows. Unconscionable practice of conversion therapy. It must end. It just must end. And as all of you have pointed out, the need to deal with the disparities of HIV/AIDS treatment and prevention for Black, gay men and transgender women populations has to be a focus. I'd add also, it's also necessary to make up for some past transgressions. That's why the President and I are working on all those who were dishonorably discharged because they were members of the LGBT community should have their discharge papers changed from dishonorable to honorable. These are things because of you we're already doing. More and more of our heroes are getting honorable discharges they rightly earned. And for our other heroes, no longer will the benefits of Public Safety Officers Program be denied same-sex partners because their colleague, their lover, their husband, their wife was shot dead serving the public. Imagine we have to fight over that. And folks, as we've been advocating for a long time, we can't have one standard in America and not insist on that standard worldwide. Folks, my colleagues constantly point out to me, I'm always saying, and I think this is the hallmark of the Obama administration, we should not only lead by the power of our example, we should lead by the example of our power. Both of them. Both. But the power of our example is more profound in the impact it has in the world than even our military. Folks, there is no cultural justification for prosecuting, persecuting, putting in jail the LGBT community in any country, anywhere in the world. But the ugly fact is, in 80 countries, it's a crime to simply be gay. Folks, our foreign policy, we're determined, will reflect our disdain for those perverted cultural norms. That's why Secretary John Kerry created the first special envoy for human rights of LGBT persons in this past February. For bigotry can never be just or supported. And the basic human rights are the foundation stone for our society. That's why people look to us. But if you give me, there's a basic human right that should concern us all. I know it's not the subject of this meeting. And that's the freedom to be free of violence, whether at the hand of another person or the bullet of a gun. This week in Oregon, we were shocked once again by senseless gun violence. And like many of you, I was angry and frustrated. Way back when I wrote the crime bill in '94, we actually had legislation, tough legislation relating to background checks, the type of weapon could be owned, the size of a magazine you could put in a gun and possess. The Bush administration eliminated all those rational gun policies, which in no way, I might add, violated the Second Amendment. So after Sandy Hook, the president asked me to draft a series of legislative and executive proposals for the president to try to pass and put in place after the massacre of those young children. Over 80% of the American people in every poll agreed with those rational proposals that we put forward. According to a recent poll, 93% of the American people agree with universal background checks. And consider this, 93% of households with a legal gun believe we should have universal background checks. It's an overwhelming majority of Americans, but a decided minority is stopping the passage of rational proposals. Everything from the size, limiting the size of a magazine, to background checks. The president and I were told not to speak of this because we can't get it passed. That we shouldn't talk about things that won't pass in this Congress. But I will continue to speak until it is passed. The history of the journey of this country is always ultimately in the direction of rational policy to expand rights and protect lives. So I ask you, on this matter as well, we need you to speak up. We need you to speak up. Let me close where I began. I'm taking too much of your time. I apologize. Let me close where I began. When my dad turned to me and said, "Joey, it's simple. They love each other." I'm often asked, I get asked this as the author of the Violence Against Women Act, I get asked this as a supporter of LGBT rights. I get asked by the press, what constitutes success? When will we know there is success? Well, in April 2012, I was in the home of Michael Lombardo and Sonny Ward and their two children in Los Angeles. I was speaking to a group of prominent members of the community. I was answering questions in their living room when a young man standing against the wall asked me maybe the most plaintive question I've ever been asked in my political career. About 40 minutes into questioning, he looked at me and he said, "Mr. Vice President, what do you think of me?" It's like someone hit me with a baseball bat. That he would feel he had to ask, "What do you think of me?" That young man was Chad. It's the first time we'd ever met. It was a simple, straightforward, profound question that seared into my mind what so many of you have had to confront and put up with your whole lives. What do you think of me? My answer is that what will constitute success is when under no circumstances, no gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender person ever has to ask the question, "What do you think of me?" That day is within our reach because of you. You give us hope. You're never silent. And together, we can change not only this country, but the whole world. God bless you, and may God bless our troops.